It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
Welcome back, everyone, to our daily Euros live stream on the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast. Today, we will be previewing tomorrow's games, Monday's games, which are Ukraine v Austria, North Macedonia, Netherlands, Finland versus Belgium, and Russia versus Denmark. They are the final group games for Group A and B. So some interesting encounters there to decide who qualifies for the next stage of the tournament. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about any of anything we're saying, then please send through them in the live chat and we will get to them throughout the stream as always. But firstly, I will introduce who will be joining me today, same as last one on Thursday. We've got Pro Sports Bettor Neel Shah at the top right-hand corner of your screen. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. You, Alex?
Very, very good, mate. And down the bottom, got Tony Alvarez from Only Fools Lay Horses. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Ready for another week of hopefully some solid profits.
Yes, mate. Let's hope. All right. How's the weekend, fellas? I mean, I'll go through the results quickly. Now, it's been a while since we've talked. Obviously, there's been a lot happen. But we had this was Friday's results here. Obviously, I was watching some of the highlights of these games, especially the Sweden and England game was pretty bloody dire to watch. But for those who remember, I did have a little mug pun on Sweden, so cheers to me. And then we had, a very surprising day here. France and Hungary drawing, Germany getting a pretty resounding win over Portugal. And then surprise draw with Spain and Poland. And then today we've had some pretty normalish kind of results. Turkey, not much to play for there. So they've had a pretty dismal tournament, you would have to say. How did you go on the weekend, Neil?
It was a horror show. So basically, I inadvertently was running a lay service. So anything I backed, literally do the opposite. You would have made quite a bit. So I think France to win to 0. I think that was my best bet, wasn't it? That didn't go too well. England as well. And then, I think when the Poland goal went in the Spain game, I did want to just throw the TV out the window. It was just one of those days. Today's been much better. These things kind of happen, but it's difficult to take, but it's all part of the, all part of the game.
And yourself, Tony, been getting some nice team news there, mate, or it's been quiet on that front?
No, I've been getting it. I mean, I've had it for most games, but it's not really been much to do with it. Most teams have been as expected, or of the changes before. What's really annoying is a lot of the stuff I said on here has either come in or partially come in for a trading perspective. But because that's not what I do, I've not done it. So I've had the opposite problem to Neil. Obviously, he's looking at losing. I'm looking at going, why didn't I do exactly what I said? But now, whatever I say, if anyone backs it, you are going to lose all your money. So it's whatever way you want to go with it. But it was Italy were my strongest bet. It was lay Germany and get out before kickoff. They drifted quite a bit. Same with Croatia. I think Sweden I said were too long and they didn't get any shorter. They got longer. So I was obviously wrong on that one. But it's just when you look at it back at what did I say on here? And everything moved the way you went into. England shortened and you're like, I should just listen to myself. But as I said, I'll do that now and I'll be broke by tomorrow. So.
Nicely said, mate. Do you guys want to take a quick look at the outright markets? I think it's really interesting. Germany have just absolutely steamed in. I think from memory on Thursday, someone messaged through the stream and said Germany at 12 or something. Like, is that too big? Should I jump on? I think I might be completely wrong, but I swear someone did. They've steamed into sevens. They're now second favourites, basically.
Yeah, they did. We might have talked them out of it, but I do remember that.
Exactly.
To them. But they called it.
We definitely did talk them out of it. I do remember that. France, I mean, they're kind of at the same odds, which is quite interesting, even after that draw to Hungary. Germany, second favourites. Italy is still up there. Belgium and England Belgium kind of stayed the same the whole way throughout. And then you've got Portugal and Spain towards the bottom there. And yeah, Netherlands kind of staying the same also. So what do you think of this, Tony? Do you think there's a bit too much hype around the Germans on the back of one, decent victory?
Yeah, I do. I know they got 4 goals, so they're going to sound stupid, but I still think they somewhat are going to struggle without a number 9. I mean, they massively overloaded Portugal out wide. And the weakness in the Portugal defence was there for everyone to see. I think we mentioned it last week that, I mean, Semedo and Pepe on the same side. Semedo's quick but can't defend, and Pepe's 37 now. So I think they was always going to struggle on that side. I think against a more packed defence. I mean, like we saw against France, and it is France who, for me, are the best team in the tournament. But Germany didn't create anything really. There's nothing you go, that was a major chance. So I think against anyone that can defend properly, actually, this might be famous last words. I wouldn't be surprised if they struggle against Hungary, because Hungary aren't going to get overloaded because they'll have a back 7 or 8. And it'll be interesting to see how Germany try and break them down, because the way they done it against Portugal won't work against Hungary.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there's ever a time to have backing the other side of the market, it seems like everyone's on Germany right now. They've absolutely just flown in. If there's ever a time to have, oh my God, the word escapes me, a contrary view, I guess you can call it, to the market, it might be now, because you might find some value there. Is there anything interesting here for you, Neil, in the outright markets?
Yeah, I think So gambling fan just mentioned that. So yeah, apologies. Hopefully you did back it yourself. My feelings on Germany haven't changed that much. I mean, it was a really impressive performance, and it was surprising. I think a lot of people were expecting a low-scoring game, or potentially a draw, much tighter than it actually turned out. I think they're too short. I think the market's overreacted to this. They still have issues. I think again France are in second, third gear, but it was the first game of the tournament, so they could kind of click into gear by then. Something I'm looking at is actually the Dutch. So I'm looking at an outright position. So I put a little bit on the Dutch. I don't think they're going to win it, but what I do think is that they have the potential, because their route is quite kind. I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they'll potentially play third place in England's group, and then winners of the last 16 match 1. So it could be again, I think potentially Wales, potentially one of the in the Denmark-Finland group. So they've got a chance. There's 2 winnable games. They've actually got a decent chance of getting to the quarterfinals, potentially the semi-finals, and obviously that price is going to come in. If they get knocked out, then you lose that. But I think I'm taking a little bit of a risk there. But I think that there's value in that price. It's going to come in quite nicely if they get to that stage, and then you can get a nice position out of that. Again, I mean, Italy, they went off. The beginning of the tournament, I think I managed to get them at 12.5. So I'm quite pleased with that. That's gone quite well. And then the Belgians, really, just sort of, again, there's question marks on them. But look, if they beat Finland, that's 3 wins out of 3. That's pretty impressive. Let's see how far they can progress. I mean, yeah, Spain have just been really disappointing. That's it really. That's kind of the contenders there. I think it would have been more interesting if France had actually lost that Hungary game. There might have been. I mean, maybe Tony can sort of say better than I can sort of how the markets would have reacted. But I'd imagine that would have created a nice opportunity, because even the best teams, they can have horror shows. They can lose a game by goal. It happens at the World Cups. There's very few teams who go on and win all 3 group games. They do stumble. It's better to get it out of your system early on, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I think it's definitely a fascinating betting race here. I agree with what you said about Netherlands. It seems like they're the least talked about team out of all these, I don't know what, top 8 or 9 teams here. And they're just cruising, mate. They're just, scoring lots of goals and staying nice and comfortable in their humble abodes of Netherlands. So they're having a cruisy tournament so far. So I agree. I reckon you'll easily be able to trade out of that. At some point, and you would assume they'll come in into some kind of shorter price as the tournament progresses. But maybe we should get straight into proceedings with the games tomorrow. I got a question here from Gambling Fan about if Ukraine and Austria draw tomorrow, who finishes second. And that will be the first game we will go through now. I'll just get up the group tables. So we are on to this would be this is Group C. Oh, apologies. I think after the introduction I said Group A and B. Yeah, so I got that wrong. But so if they do draw, this is really interesting. I'm assuming that Ukraine would finish second because they've scored more goals for, and I mean the table is like that right now. So I don't know if you guys have any insight on that. I assume Ukraine finish second right if they draw.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. First game we will go through is Ukraine and Austria. The draw. It's very funny. I mean, when's the last time you saw something like this? I think someone tweeted out the other day that the draw was at 287 after their game's finished, and now it's just absolutely steamed into 1 point. It's crazy. The draw's at 2s, Ukraine at 3.7-ish, and Austria are at 4.1, 4.2 at a few places. So as we all know, a draw here seems both teams qualify for the finals. They've got the exact same for and against. Ukraine coming off that great performance against North Macedonia, whereas Austria come into this one after producing 0.67 XG against a Dutch side not really known for their defence. I guess the first question for you, Tony, is, mate, like, do you think these teams will just play for the draw, or do you want to take a contrarian view to this one and come up with something interesting?
I think you'd be stupid to go with anything but the draw, or either go with nothing or the draw, because it suits both teams. Like, all of the reasons, it's 2 for a reason, or it's evens for a reason. I think that in a normal straight shootout match, if it actually mattered, I would favour Ukraine. So usually I would say Ukraine's odds are really long, but they're only long because of the draw's been shortened so much. So personally, I would leave it alone. But I would say the draw is very likely, but I don't like getting on these sure thing results because you just feel stupid when you don't have it, especially when it's not your actual opinion. Like, I think Ukraine are a better team, but I'd be stupid to go against the sure thing, and then I'd be really annoyed if I went with the sure thing and it was wrong because it wasn't my actual opinion. So, I think for me, I think it's a stand well away and watch from a distance.
Can either of you think of any recent examples where this has been the case in a European or World Cup tournament where a draw favours both teams, and like what the outcome of that game was?
I think Denmark.
There was. I remember. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, was it Denmark-Sweden? Was that the one?
I know in the World Cup there was a France-Denmark 0-0 last group game where it wasn't a complete, like, both teams go through, but Denmark could have come third if France won, and if Denmark won, Denmark would have won the group. So, and a 0-0 just suited them both. France topped the group, remained status quo, and Denmark got through. And it was the worst 0-0 you've ever seen. Like, they might as well have just not played the game. Obviously that was 2018. There's probably more high-profile ones or more obvious ones, but I only remember that because I had a ball draw thing on it because I was still half match betting at the time.
Yeah, no, Gambling Fans said the same thing too. So,
Yeah, there's
no.
history to it. There's been a few times this happened. I mean, actually, Austria were involved in one in 1982 against West Germany. Yeah, I mean, this was like notorious, and I think minutes or something. I can't remember the exact permutation, but they were just kind of knocking the ball around with no sort of effort. And then it was Denmark, Sweden in 2004. So basically, they needed a 2-2 draw. That was the only way that both teams would get through, and the other team that would be knocked out would be Italy. And I think that's why they changed the format. I don't know if they had games at the same time before then, at the final group games, but because of that, I think that was partly the reason.
They changed that because of the 1982 that you mentioned was why they changed it to
that's
kick
the
off
reason.
at the same time.
Yeah. So it could happen. I mean, I've looked at this and yeah, I agree with Tony as well. Like, you kind of sometimes it's better to leave these alone and be very wary, but you don't want to really go against what the market is saying if it's that strong an opinion. But I mean, I've just looked just purely based on price action, just based on value. So Betway have the 0-0 half time 2.3, and the rest of the market has it priced kind of closer to evens. So there's a little bit of value there. So I'm happy to take that. I think more than likely that should happen. There's some sources saying that maybe they'll play for a score draw. There's maybe a gentleman's agreement that if Ukraine take the lead, Austria get one back. I mean, if that happens, then that'll be quite interesting to see, because it's difficult to necessarily prove it. But this will be the first time that Austria would qualify for a knockout round. They're not going to go forward. They're not really going to play that adventurously. They were quite disappointing against the Netherlands. They didn't really show much intent. They're fairly poor. So for them, it's a huge thing to get through, and for the Ukraine as well. There's no incentive really for them to play aggressively. I think if they played to their full potential, like Tony said, they're the better team. They should win. But I think this is the way it's going to play out. I think either it's best left avoided, or again, if you see some value somewhere on one of these books where they're slow to adjust their prices, that might be the way to go.
Would you lay the leader if someone goes 1-0 up?
Yeah, I mean, it's tempting. Yeah, it depends what point in the match. I mean, the other thing I was looking at was, let's say if it's somehow it's 1-1 and there's 20-25 minutes to go, just absolutely just back the draw. Nothing's going to happen in that game. Neither team is going to risk going forward or trying to chase for that second goal. Or if you are, looking at it from a trading perspective, I guess you lay the draw and just trade out as soon as that first goal goes in. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I am genuinely interested to see what happens in that game and how the teams approach it.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting. I wish I could. I think it's on at 2:00 in the morning here, but I wish I could watch it. It'd be very interesting to see how it all plays out. I just can't help but think like it just seems like a really fun proposition to think that, I don't know, Austria might sit back a little bit and be happy to defend the whole time. And, there's obviously a chance there that Ukraine could knock one in. But, it may be overall it's one just to stay out of. So in terms of bets, we can summarize and say nothing for you, Tony, but Neil, you're thinking a draw at halftime, did you say?
Yeah, but I mean, the odds I got were 2.3 if it's still available at Betway. I wouldn't take much less than that, really.
Yeah. Okay. Gambling fans said, would it be worth backing 0-0 and 1-1 separately, which is better than even odds?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. It's 0-0. It's the 0-0 at halftime. It's what back, not the draw.
Yeah, okay. But I think he's just saying if I backed correct score overall, 0-0 and 1-1 separately, that overall you're getting better than even odds. So I don't know. Maybe that's
I'm seeing what they average out to. If you're going to stake them equally as well, or yeah, it's possible. I mean, for me, I'm not looking at sort of the full time. I just think half time I like the play because I don't expect it to be a sort of frantic start. I think, again, that those odds implies about a 43% chance, something like that. Whereas I think, it's a better chance than that of it ending 0-0 at half-time. The second half, who knows?
All right. Let's move on to the other game in Group C. I'll get the table up once again so everyone can see where Netherlands and Macedonia lie. As you can see, that the North Macedonians essentially need a miracle to progress. They have a -3 goal difference and 0 points. So, I mean, if they want to go through, they would have to score a lot of goals and win by a lot of goals over the Dutch. So, it's going to be pretty tough for them. Whereas the Dutch produced another superb performance against Austria. And I mean, they probably should have beat them by more than 2 goals. So the Netherlands cruising, coming into this one in a load of form, scoring lots of goals. There's nothing really to play for here, you wouldn't think. Even if Netherlands lose, they're probably going to top the group anyway. What the hell was that? Was that the dog?
Yeah.
What's he thinking on the match?
Yeah. I'll mute you for a second there, Tony. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this one, Neil?
I think it's going to be a good game. I think I'm looking forward to it. I think there's going to be goals in it. I love this Macedonia team. They just don't, they're just enjoying it. They're just
how good's the striker?
What's that?
How good's the striker? Is his name Pandev or something like that?
Pandev, yeah. He's like 100 years old. He's going to be 38 next month. Incredible. And even in the last game, this is lovely little dink. It was offside, but he was such a good player. Had a great career, and they've got talent in that team, and they score goals. I think there's stats somewhere. Yeah, so they've only failed to score in one of their last 17 games. I mean, they've played a lot of crap teams in that run, but at the same time, they have played some good opposition, and that shows some consistency. So they score goals. They've got creative players. They've got Bardi and Elmas there, as creators, and Pandev. And against this Dutch defence, I wouldn't put it past them to score. I'm not, but then the market is kind of expecting that to some extent as well. So I mean, I was looking at this. I still think the odds on that on both teams to score, Netherlands to win, both teams to score, is what I expect might happen. But it's a little bit too short for me. And yeah, I think the Dutch will do well. They're rotating. The other thing is having a look at team news, who they're actually going to go with. I think the team news may have been leaked. I don't know if they'll actually go with that team though, but you'll expect some changes. Daniel Marlon came in and he looked really lively. I expect him to do well. If you want to look at goal scorer bets, maybe he's one to consider. Ryan Gravenberch, he's got huge potential. He's a potential superstar of the future in midfield. And I expect him to have a good game as well. So, and there's nothing to lose for the Dutch. They're going to just go out and have a good time in front of a lively crowd at home, and they're going to enjoy it. So they're one of those kind of teams. They will attack. The crowd won't let them kind of sit back and play out a dull game. I don't think De Boer's capable of setting his team up to do that either. So yeah, I'm expecting lots of goal-mouth action. I have an obscure angle in, which is on goal kicks. So over 13.5 goal kicks on this game. Forgive me, I'm trying to remember the odds I had on this. But yeah, my thinking on this was, again, there's a lot of kind of wayward shots. So I think there's going to be a lot of action. It might be maybe devoid of a little bit of quality at times. I think Macedonia are going to have shots themselves. They're going to have chances and can create openings. So I do, but again, will they test the keeper? So I like that. So that's at 1.83 with 365. So that would be my angle in. But I wouldn't put it past you again if you're looking to trade it. I think there's a good chance of goals. There's sometimes I like to do trades on first half goals, so 2.5 first half goals. It's usually quite a cheap play. And again, if there's 2 quick goals in the first half, you can generally get a nice profit on that. So that would be my angle in.
Okay, awesome. I'll bring you back in, Tony. But before that, I forgot to mention the odds. So you can get about 1.3 for the Dutch. The draws at 5.56, and North Macedonia as high as 12s and 13s. Yeah, Tony, your thoughts, mate? Well, I can't hear you.
Yeah,
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go,
I got you now, mate.
Okay. So as Neil said, the lineup looks like it's been leaked with Holland making 2 changes, being Marlon and Gravenbach. It was for earlier in the tournament that Pandev might miss out because of his age and playing so many games in short space of time. But he's today announced that it'll be his last game, and he's going to retire from international football after. So I kind of see it similar to Neil. I think it'll be a really open game. I think Holland, as I said, their fans won't let them sit back, and the players will want to get goals. And as I said, there's a couple of debutants or like first big major games, tournament games. I like the over 2.5, but I don't like the odds. It's sitting around 1.6.
Yeah.
I think over 3.5 at 2.5 is not the worst bet in the world. As I said, I see a really open game. I think Macedonia would rather go out on their shield and try and score than just park the bus and lose without disgrace. I think they would rather lose 4-2 than 2-0 sort of thing. So I can see quite an open game. So yeah, I'd probably looking at over 3.5 if you can get 2.5. If you can get 2.5, sorry, odds. I don't think it's the worst bet in the world. I do fancy Holland to win. I'm pretty confident Holland will win at 1.31. Would I back them? Probably not.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that bet at all. I was surprised. I thought the line might be a little bit higher. Is it? I would assume the line's at probably about 3, is it something like that? Over 3, under 3. Yeah. So, yeah, I can see here you can get 2.45 ish for over 3.5 goals on the exchanges there. So, yeah, that might be a little play there. So I'm assuming the Dutch are resting a few players.
Well, it looks like Weghorst is out for Marlon, which is the sub they made at 1-0 the other day anyway. And the other change, if the league team news is right, which it looks like it is, Gravenbach, I couldn't make out the image of who he came in for. I know Frankie was still in. So it may be Blind, who they'd sub after 60 anyway, but I'm not 100%. But I mean, as I said, it's only 2 changes. One of them, Weghorst and Marlon. So it's not wholesale changes and it's not wholesale resting. Wijnaldum's still playing. From what I saw, Dumfries is still playing. Van Arnholt. So yeah, it's just another midfielder essentially.
All right. Well, yeah, should be an interesting game. But I mean, overall, this group is not very interesting. Let's be honest. It's kind of done and over, and a draw in the Ukraine-Austria game. We'll see both teams progress, and there's nothing to play for really in this game. So why don't we talk about some more interesting stuff, fellas? And we can kick it off with Finland v Belgium, which is one of the games in the final round of Group B. I'll get up the Group B table for everyone. So I'll try and break this down as easily for everyone. Belgium, obviously going to go through. They're on 6 points with a +4 goal differential. You've got Russia there in second with 3 points, Finland with 3 points, Denmark with 0 points. So the 2 games are Belgium, Finland, and Russia and Denmark. So basically, if Denmark beat Russia, and I guess the 2 probable scenarios that will happen, or at least the most favoured scenarios, is that Denmark beat Russia and Belgium beat Finland. So if Belgium beat Finland, then Finland are going to go probably not progress. I'm assuming here, but or maybe they will. It's very very confusing, but Denmark, if they beat Russia, they'll move above Russia, and if Belgium beat Finland, they'll stay in first. And then depending on how I'm just looking at here. So if Denmark would go over Finland, I think, if Denmark beat Russia and Belgium beat Finland, so then Denmark qualify, even if they only win, Denmark only win by like 1 goal or something. All that sounds very.
That's right.
That's not right.
No, because all 3 of them would be on 3 points. It's I think it becomes a 3-way head-to-head, because if it was only 1-0, Finland's goal difference would be the best anyway, because Russia and Finland are both Russia and Denmark are both -2 and Finland are 0.
But if Finland lose to Belgium by 1 goal, then they go to -1.
I think when 3 teams are tied, it goes into like a head-to-head between them.
Yeah, so it's head-to-head first and then goal difference.
Okay. So Denmark, essentially, if they want a sure qualification, they need to beat Russia by 2 goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
as long as
even then, but then Finland's head-to-head. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So if they beat Russia, because then it goes to a 3-way head-to-head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Finland Belgium game first and kind of break that down. So as I said, Belgium secured qualification, and then on the other hand, you got Finland, who weren't too bad against the Russians, even though they went down. They lose 1-0 to Russia, I think it was. But yeah, you would most likely think that a loss here is on the cards for the Finns, unless Belgium are also looking to rest a few players. So maybe I'll go to you first, Tony, and just ask if there's any team news on this one for Belgium.
Not got anything yet. I only got the Holland news early because their assistant manager's an idiot. But Belgium, this is one of them I wouldn't be betting until after the team news. But I think Belgium are way too long. I think they're where they are because people expect changes, but the likes of Hazard need minutes. De Bruyne hasn't had a start. He's only had half hour so far. Witsel needs a start. So I think they'll make changes, but not particularly be any weaker. Lukaku may rest, but again, if you've got whoever plays up front, if you've got them being fed by Hazard, De Bruyne, and the other Hazard or Carrasco or Mertens, one of them 3, you'd expect them to score goals against Finland, especially with the likes of Witsel behind them. Maybe Tielemans stays in, maybe Pratt comes in, someone like that. So for me, I know it's the cop-out bet to say Belgium will win, but I think Belgium are too long even if they make changes. As I said, I think they'd probably be around the 1.3, but they're at 1.37 because people expect changes. But personally, I expect very strong changes, which is why I think they're really, really long, to be honest. Yeah,
no, well said. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, definitely agreed with Tony there as well. It's not something I don't have a strong bet for it at the moment. I'm looking at the passing lines. I think Belgium are going to keep a lot of the ball. I wouldn't be comfortable backing them to win to 0, just because there's always a mistake in that Belgian defence. But at the same time, Finland have kind of flattered to deceive. I think they've been very fortunate, obviously with what happened in the Denmark game. But they don't really test the opposition goalkeeper that much. They have very few shots on target. Even Timo Pukki, I'm not sure, if he's 100%. So I think they'll struggle. They'll just struggle to break Belgium down. And again, Belgium have nothing to lose, much like the Dutch. Really, if you've got a team full of flair players, and generally sort of even more so than the Dutch, kind of like for like replacements. A very good second 11. Again, I can just see quite a straightforward victory here. But it won't be necessarily as open, as that Netherlands Macedonia game. Finland will come and try and frustrate, try and make a point. But so one way could be maybe Belgium and let's say under 3.5. I think you'll get decent odds on that if that's something you want to play. But it's not one I would be looking at, but I might look at it in play, to kind of see, to judge how the game is going, what the permutations are in the other game as well. Is there going to be a need for Finland to actually sort of push. So yeah, that will all come into it.
Yeah, I mean, even if Finland decide to push, though, are you gonna? I don't know. Is it going to really stress out the Belgians too much?
Well, yeah, I mean, but they could kind of hit them on the counter, so maybe sort of looking at goals. But yeah, again, it's not something I kind of have a strong play in. It's not really a game I would be watching either. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
You'll be a lot more interested in the Russia-Denmark game, mate, especially with all those what dual forecast bets that I'm sure everyone placed before this with
all
with
of us
Belgium.
on Belgium Denmark are just hoping on that, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean it's very interesting. It's exciting to think that a team that's lost both of their opening 2 games can still finish second. Actually, heading into the last round. So it is a very exciting game. So why don't we just focus all of our attention on that game? We've got lots of questions coming through. Actually, Shane's just sent in something here. He says, I read a stat that any team that qualified for the tournament with an unbeaten qualifier record has never gone on to win the Euro Championships. So that's Belgium and Italy who fill the category. So thanks very much for that, Shane. And we'll see how that one plays out with both those teams. They'll definitely progress to the finals. But yeah, Russia, Denmark, I'll get up the odds here. Denmark, you can get it about 1.75. Draw is about 3.9. And Russia as high as 5.1 on a couple of bookmakers there. So this game is all to play for. A point for Russia would probably be enough to go through, whereas Denmark need all 3 points and probably need to win well after that heartbreaking defeat against Belgium. So yeah, a 2-goal win here would most likely secure second place for them if the Finland Belgium game goes to plan. But yeah, the Danes they played very well, didn't they? And especially in that first half against Belgium, I think that would have shocked a lot of people how well they dominated Belgium in that first half. So I'll go to you first, Neil. Yeah, all to play for here, mate. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I really like Denmark for the win here. I think their price is decent. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. So I'll be going for a Denmark win. I believe it's in Copenhagen as well, so they'll be playing in front of a home crowd. I'm not sure what's happened in terms of restrictions and things like that, but they seem to have more fans in for the last game, and they've been very, very unlucky. Even sort of with Eriksson aside, just looking on the stats, so they've had 43 shots, 29 of those in the box, an XG of 4.2, but have only scored 1 goal, and they've only had 7 shots against them and conceded 3, which to me, again, sort of looking at variance, that's how it's played out. But the underlying form is there. They don't have a lethal finisher. They lack that quality with Eriksson there. But against Belgium, they just flew out the traps. Had a really fast start, and Belgium looked like they were really struggling in the first half. And then De Bruyne came on, it kind of turned the game on its head. I think Denmark tired a little bit, but if they can do that to Belgium, there's no reason why they can't do that to Russia. Russia, I think, are quite a limited team. They will try and sit and play for the draw, but I do fancy Denmark to win this. I think sort of form is temporary, class is permanent. I think they've got enough of a goal threat in them to overcome them quite comfortably.
Yeah.
One other one as well I was going to be on is Højbjerg passes. I think the line is 60 and a half on 365. So as well as I see them winning the game, I see them sort of dominating possession, keeping the ball for long periods of time, kind of controlling that midfield battle. So I also see that coming in quite nicely.
Yeah, a few contrasting views coming in. Gambling fans saying Russia will play for the draw, which kind of makes sense. People saying they like the odds on Denmark there from Velocity. And then The 90s is back. He's written, it has draw written all over it. 1-1, 0-0 type of game. Russia aren't that bad. Unders may be the play. So there's varying opinions out there. And yeah, you would agree, Tony, that Russia will most likely sit back and play for the draw here?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think will happen. I'm not a huge fan of Denmark, but I thought they were excellent the other day, or at least for 45 minutes against Belgium. I think the issue they have is, even if, as I said, I think Russia will defend, and even if Denmark can sneak a goal, and as we said, they're not the most clinical of teams, 1-0 doesn't do them any favours, so then they'll still have to open up even more. Yeah. So for me, this is a game I'll be looking at in play more than a pre-match bet. And I'll be, obviously, depending on how it goes, I'd be tempted to lay Denmark from the start, but I wouldn't. But in play, especially if they're 1-0 up with sort of 20 to go and it doesn't look like another goal's coming, or it looks like they may struggle for a low risk lay, I'd probably look at Denmark. So as I said, they have to push. 1-0 does them no favours, because in this group, the third isn't going to go through. I was looking at all the groups last night, and it looks like the cut is going to be 4 points with pretty much any goal difference to go through. So 3 points with an even goal difference or a negative goal difference is almost certainly not going to get you through. So for me, I mean, I like the unders from the start. They're just under evens. They're 1.96, under 2.5. But so I think I'd leave it in play and for a really low risk lay if Denmark are leading by a goal with 15 minutes to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very, very intriguing pro. What price would you take on? You said you were going to back Denmark, Neil. Maybe you have already. What price are you looking at there?
I mean, I put on some of my stake at the start. I wouldn't, but then, as Tony said, but I mean, for a different trade. But I would look for, if it is going to be a tight start, then use the rest of my stake if they're playing well. If they hit kind of closer to evens. But even at that price, for example, I mean, they flew out of the traps against Belgium and they scored fairly quickly. So that's why I'd want to have something on them before the game in case that does happen. But Russia will sit back more than Belgium will. They'll be kind of difficult to break down. They won't give that much space away. But I do feel they're going to get the job done. I think just on all the numbers and everything I've seen from them so far, I think they've got enough quality to see it through. Whether they've got enough to qualify, as Tony said, it's going to be difficult for them. But I think they'll win this. They'll at least get a 1-0 win out of this, I think.
Well, I mean, you said, Tony, that they might. So if Denmark beat Russia or beating them 1-0, then Denmark move above Russia on the table. So then Russia, they're going to have to pull their finger out because...
No, they don't. They don't move above them because it becomes a freeway between them. So it'd all be level because So Russia beat Finland 1-0. Denmark beat Russia 1-0 if that's the case. And Finland beat Denmark 1-0. So then it will come down to the goal scored. It'll go down to disciplinary record, which I ain't got a clue, to be honest.
Oh, really? Okay. Didn't know that.
But we worked it out today because if Switzerland won 3-0 and it won 2-0 and Italy won 3-0, it would have gone to disciplinary record, then UEFA rankings. We was working it out today because it was at one point there was a real possibility. I think Italy were 1-0 up and Russia would and Wales were down to 10 men, and Switzerland were 2-0 up. So it literally just took 2 more Italy goals and everything would have been tied up. So someone in the chat group looked into how it would be decided because I asked, I didn't have a clue, and then it works out disciplinary record and then just UEFA rankings if there's nothing that can split them there.
I totally missed that conversation. That's interesting. Very interesting.
Well, I'm not sure, but what I'm not sure about is because it would be 3 teams even. I'm not sure at what point Belgium's results count. Because if it's a 3-team tie, it's usually the other teams excluded, and then you go in the head-to-head between them 3. I don't know if that's all even, if then Belgium's results come into it. And obviously so far they've beaten Russia by 3, which would put them out. They've beaten Denmark by 1, and the Finland game's obviously not been played yet. But I don't know about that permutation. We didn't work that out because that wasn't a case today. But it's not as easy as Denmark beat Russia 1-0, they go above them because of Finland.
I'm really confused because if Denmark beat Russia, that means they're going to have a superior goal difference than them. They're going to be on 3 points each, obviously. But Denmark will then have a...
Belgium come out.
Sorry?
But the Belgian result comes out when it goes to head-to-head, because it'll be a head-to-head between Russia, Finland and Denmark. And all three of them games, if it is 1-0, would have been 1-0.
But do they not go goal difference over head-to-head?
No, head-to-head first.
Oh, really? So if you're on level points, they look at head-to-head first?
Well, that's why Russia are second at the moment, because their goal difference is the worst. It's joint with Denmark.
Oh, of course,
because
yeah.
they beat Finland, that's why they're above them on that table.
There you go. All right. So, but then if Denmark, so it does become very confusing because, yeah, like you said, Denmark would have then beat Russia, Finland would have then beat Denmark, but Russia have beat Finland. So, and what are the?
If it is 1-0, they've all been 1-0 as well. So if Denmark win 2-1, then it's easy because they'll do it on goals scored.
Yeah. And so what are the disciplinary records like for these three teams?
I can't pretend I've looked.
This is mental. Why don't we get to some of these questions that have come through? I never thought we'd be talking about this. Shane says, if you have time, can you ask your guests on finalists, top goal scorer and young player of the tournament? I mean, we can have a quick look at that. Have you guys been looking into that at all?
So before the tournament started, my France were my winners, Italy were my finalists, and Lukaku was my golden boot. I didn't do a young player of the tournament because I don't know if they're going by Premier League young, which is like 25 and under, which is a joke. I don't know how UEFA, what their category is.
I think it's 23, but I might be wrong on that, but I'm not sure.
So this is the marker for top goal scorer here for anyone interested. Is there anything here that you guys fancy?
Well, I mean, I was on Lukaku at the beginning of the tournament, and I'm kind of sticking with that. I think Immobile was a shout. I think George mentioned Immobile in the previews pod as well. If you'd got on Patrick Schick, for example, as an each way, that would have been, big odds. So you could, I think that's where you might find some value to see, to look at kind of one of these outsiders on an each way. I don't know how many bookies are sort of pricing them, with that many places right now. So you need to look around for that kind of thing. Young players tournament, I did Ferran Torres. That was my pick. That doesn't look like it's going to happen the way that Spain are playing. And again, I'm not sure. I haven't looked into whether you can actually bet on them now during the tournament. But those would have been my picks. But yeah, yes. And like Tony said with Italy, I think that's a great shout for a finalist as well.
Yeah, here's I was trying to get up how many goals everyone scored. So yeah, Ronaldo's on top there with Schick, and they're both on 3. And then there's Locatelli, Immobile, Shaqiri, Yarenchuk, Lukaku, Yarmolenko, Dumfries, all on 2 goals there. And I can get up the young player of the tournament if that's something, that odds checker. Oh, here we go. Sorry, did you guys say you had anything here? Yeah, I mean, Shane mentioned Kai Havertz.
Yeah, if you're saying, if the price is the same on Havertz and Foden, in that sense, it's a no-brainer. Potentially. The only, I think my concern with Havertz is just because there's so many goal options for Germany now. But he is coming into form. He did have a fantastic game. I certainly wouldn't put it past him to do that. Absolutely. I found this market tricky, to be honest, looking at the names on there. I think Torres was the one I went for at the beginning of the tournament because I thought he'd get the most minutes and the most potential goal-scoring opportunities, but it hasn't played out like that, the way Spain have played. And then again, looking at the rest of the list, I suppose Donnarumma, potentially, if Italy have a good tournament, he's getting all the way there. That's odds of 10. But as a goalkeepers don't tend to win these kind of awards. I think Oliver Kahn won it once. So really, Italy need to have kind of at least got to the final, I think, for him to get that.
Don't mind the Isak shout here either. Pretty long odds. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sweden kind of plucked their way through the tournament and made it reasonably deep, because all these young players, I mean, there's no one here that you're going to say like is definitely going to make it to the semis or the finals. So I mean, it might be, you know, all these like Germany, English kind of players. There's a chance they might get knocked out in the round of 16 or quarters. So Isak at long odds here, and he's been superb so far. So maybe that's a play for people there. What else did we have come through in the questions here? Gambling fan off. He says off topic. Sorry. How do you record your results? I use a diary for every individual sport, but as you can imagine, I have a lot of separate diaries. How do you do it, Neil?
So I use a tool called betsin.gs. If anyone follows me on Twitter, you can see like the tips that I post. If you click on it, it shows you that website. I find it the easiest way. A lot of people, you can just use an Excel spreadsheet if you want. For me, I like that because you can split it by sport, by tipsters that you follow or markets or whatever you want, and do lots of sort of analysis on that. So for me, that's great. Keeps it quite nice and organized.
What about you, Tony? I assume it's pretty easy for you, mate, considering you're just using one book.
Yeah, I use one book and I don't make many trades. So for me, I just use my Smarkets results and my profit and loss from Smarkets.
Yeah, very easy, mate. Your dog's having a good time once again. And for those interested in what I do, I use a lot of different bet trackers for all sorts of different things. So I actually use the Trademate Game Center for some of my bets. I use BetStamp for some of my bets. I use a manual tracker for some of my bets, like especially like, you know, golf and horses and stuff like that. I don't think there's any bet trackers out there for those kind of markets. I could be wrong. If there are, please let me know. So yeah, I use a very variety of bet trackers out there to track everything else. What else have we got here? Clock End Podcast. Never heard of them. They're they're a fan of Immobile to win top goal scorer, I'm assuming.
That's my Arsenal podcast. So
I knew,
exactly,
mate.
Australian.
Yeah, awesome. Who else have we got here? What's that name? I'm not going to try pronounce that. They said, have we discussed Ukraine and Austria yet? Yes, we have, mate. I think that might have been the first game we talked about. So if you just rewind to the start, we talked about that quite briefly. And here we go. Another one from the 90s says, I use Smarkets Exchange and they wanted to know what my job was and how much I earn. Have you had this problem, Tony?
I've been asked this by pretty much every bookie and every exchange. In my experience, markets are the easiest and don't care. It used to be a running joke within my group that you could just write on the back of a stamp, I can afford it, let me carry on, and Smarkets would approve that. I don't know if it's got any harder because they've not asked me for a while now. But I was always honest, but Smarkets never asked for proof. And me being honest, I mean, that is my job. So mine was look at my P&L on your website and there you go. But yeah, Smarkets are usually not too difficult. You can just put in your job in, put in your salary. Obviously, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you have a salary or if you're full-time at this. But yeah, Smarkets is usually pretty easy. Some are a joke. They want documents upon documents upon documents. But Smarkets are usually pretty good about it. I think it's just something they have to do for regulation, and they don't really want to do it either, so they accept whatever you want, whatever you send.
All right, fellas, how about we finish up with our best bets for tomorrow? We'll go to you first, Neil, mate. Out of the 4 games, what's your favourite bet there?
Of the 4 games, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm just going to go for Denmark.
Denmark at what are they, 1.75, something like that?
Yeah. Not the most adventurous pick, but...
Oh, mate, it's adventurous enough for me. How about you, Tony?
I'm really torn because, as I said, I think Belgium are way too long, but that isn't adventurous at all. Which leaves the over 3.5 in Holland game, which I think should happen. But the Belgium's obviously a safer bet, but the odds tell you that.
Yeah, you can take the Belgium one, and I'll take the Dutch one. I quite like that over 3.5 line. Maybe you could pair it with a Belgian a Dutch victory too. Little bet builder there.
Yeah, I mean, if I think he goes over 3.5, I don't think it's going to be 2 or 3-1 to Macedonia, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have no idea what odds that would come to. So you got 1.3 on Netherlands and 2.4-ish or something for the over 3.5. So I don't know. Could you get 3s for that? Something like that? I'm not really.
Oh yeah, you
bet
get
that. 1.3 times 2.5, isn't it?
Is that they don't work it out exactly like that though, do they?
That's how they're supposed to work it out.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. I mean, there wasn't some huge insight there today, but I think that the game of tomorrow that everyone's got to watch out for is the Denmark-Russia game, especially if Denmark go up 1-0, then it'll get very, very interesting. So hope you all enjoy the games tomorrow. You can find these gentlemen on Twitter, so you can find Neel at MyBettorLife, and his website is mybettorlife.com, and you can find Tony at his YouTube channel, Only Fools Lay Horses. That's all just one word. And you can also join his team news channel, which is on Patreon. It's called Only Fools VIP. We will be back tomorrow at the same time after the conclusion of those Group B games. And we'll be talking about the games that are on the following day. And I think George is back tomorrow. I'm not sure if you're on, Tony. I can't really remember, but either way, we'll have a stellar cast, and Neel will be here as always. As always, Neel just tags along. But yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Before you jump out, please give us a like on the stream and do a little comment if you really enjoyed that. Show it to a few friends. That's always quite nice. And if you're looking to implement some of the strategies we talked about today, especially the value betting ones, start a free week trial of Trademate Sports. Gents, we'll have to catch up tomorrow, and good luck with all of your bets tomorrow.
Cheers, Alex. Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.